It sure was a thing when the Great Nature GR here in Tokyo went from like $2 a piece to like 25 in like one day. Hello and welcome everyone to the belated zoo set breakdown. I've been quite busy after my commentary job for the BCS because I will be leaving from Japan soon, and so I didn't really have much time. I also had exams like right after BCS finals, and so I've just been busy with a lot of things, and so I haven't really had time to sit down and make this properly, but now here I am. So this set does support every single Zoo Nation clan, including Megacolony, Great Nature, and Neo Nectar. And as always, we'll be going through the clans in terms of preference, but honestly, second and third place are kind of tied. It's like the first place that I'll pick, which I actually prefer a little bit more, not because I play it, but more because like I like what it brought into the game, is what I'm trying to say. But regardless, we'll get to that as we go through the video. And before we begin, don't forget to hit up that bell button. It's really important because it makes sure that my videos hit your notifications, and I think that's pretty important if you want to be watching some of the stuff that I put my, heart and soul into, I suppose. But only if you want to, but it would mean a great deal to me if you did, so I'm just throwing that out there. But first and foremost, we should be going over the ZR for this set, which is Zeroth Dragon of Death Garden Zoa. So this is the ZR for the set, who will confirmed be a triple rare foiling print in GBT14 in the Gize pack. But Zoa's skill is obviously Ultimate Stride, so you do have to discard a copy of your Vanguard in order to stride into him. And when you stride into Zoa, you counterblast 2 and you draw a card and you choose a card from your hand, call it to rearguard circle, and until end of turn it gets the skill that this unit cannot be chosen by card effects, and its power becomes 99999 constantly. And when this unit deals damage to your opponent's Vanguard, your opponent loses. So the cannot be chosen by card effects refers to both things like Denial Griffin on your opponent's side, but also refers to things like stand triggers on your side. So literally no effects, it's just a 99999 one-time swing. I've heard there's some things in Great Nature you can do with this. Like obviously you can't stand it, but you can, like, I've heard that there's something you can do. Maybe somebody in the comments can tell me a bit more about it, because I haven't really had time to research this as much, but because I've been more focused on like the actual like cards within the clans rather than how they interact with Zoa. In my opinion, it's an interesting stride, because like at least like in both Megacolony and I want to say Great Nature, you don't struggle with counterblast that much, so even if you go into this, like, you're not really putting yourself that far behind. So it's kind of interesting, but I think it's a little bit, I don't know if I want to say slow, but like it doesn't work as well as some of the other ZRs. Like, it's obviously not Dust or Ultima, but at this time they're not released yet. But from the ones now, I think it is fairly good. I'd put it under Megiddo, but above Drachma, I think. So that's where things are for now. But it's a pretty good ZR. I think like if you can afford it, then you can play it. But if you don't, then I wouldn't worry about it the least. So now that we're done with that, let's move into the actual clans. And the first clan that we're going to go over is actually going to be Great Nature, but like I said, it's pretty much tied with the second place that I picked. I just like, I might as well get this out of the way first. And we're going to be kicking off with its GR, which is Omniscience Dragon it says Balawurl, but honestly Balawurl is a little bit easier to pronounce. Anyway, you may not think this, but this is a dragon somehow. And his skill is act once per turn, Soul Blast 1 and flip a G unit face up. Choose all of the units in your front row until end of turn. They get the skill that when this unit attacks hits a Vanguard, you draw a card, but only once per turn. And plus 4k for each face up card in your G zone. At the end of that turn, retire those rear guards. This is pretty good, honestly. It scales over time, so even if you use it on first stride, it's going to be quite strong, because honestly, I'm not surprised why this card shot up all of a sudden, because at first, like, when you looked at it on paper, you'd be like, of course it's gonna be cheap, of course it's not that even good, like, it sure doesn't cost a counterblast, but like, it just gives you an on-hit skill to all your rear guards. Like, how is that even good? And like, it gives you like a scaling plus 4k, like, how is that even so great? But then you think about how the clan has all these things like Crayon Tiger and the new Grade 3 Big Belly, and like all these things that like stand rears, so it's like, at least once, I'm pretty sure it'll hit. Plus, like, you use this first stride, you're pretty much certain to hit at least once, because, like, you're using it on first stride, your opponent's gonna want some damage, to be able to actually use their skills. So obviously they're gonna wanna, take it at least once or twice, and getting up to 3 extra cards per turn is definitely pretty sexy. So I really think this is a pretty good GR. It's not too complex, like, it scales over turns, and that's about it. But it's also this set, I'm just gonna say this now, like, this set started a I don't want to say it's a trend in GRs, because honestly, like, there's only a few of them that, like, carried it on. Like, Victor didn't carry it on, but Gallop did. Which is a trend of, like, GRs that you want to go into every single time. And, like, I think, actually, Alexandro started that, because, like, in Alka Forest, you pretty much want to go into Alexandro's every stride. And this is also, like, why wouldn't you go into this every time? Like, except for, like, maybe when you're going to Managarma or something, like, that kind of thing. But we're going to go over some other, like, GRs in this set that are a lot more of those, like, stride every turn than good old Barrow is. So, good card, but nothing too amazing to talk, like, nothing too complex to talk about. He's amazing, but he's not complex. So there's that. So the way we're going to do things for the Great Nature part now, after we've gone over the GR, is I'm going to split it up into archetype as usual. So we're going to go over the Honorary Professor stuff first, and then we're going to go over the belly stuff, and then we're going to look into the generic cards that could work in everything. It's mostly just success stuff, because that technically works in other things, but not necessarily, so you know, sit tight. So our first card is going to be Super Honorary Professor Meilleur Chat Noir. And so his skill is a G-EB02. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If you have a hard card with an Honorary Professor in its name, you can almost 1 and discard 3. If you do put this unit into your G zone, face up, choose up to 1 grade 3 card with Honorary Professor from your hand and write it as stand. If you row, choose all of your rear guards, they get plus 4k until end of turn, and at the end of that turn, you retire them. So, does quite a lot. It is on G-EB02 this time though, so you won't be able to use it on first stride. But it is quite solid. The reason why you discard 3 is obviously because you essentially get a restanding Vanguard, and you know, the clan, or well, rather the deck, does have a combo now which essentially lets you double stride. Because with the way that Chat Sauvage works, essentially he lets you, you know, just stride again. If you use Meilleur Chat Noir to like go into him, then you technically can actually stride again. So you can do a double stride in 1 turn, and that's kind of disgusting when I think about it. But you know, you lose a little bit of like closing power, because like Chat Sauvage's stride like targets are quite restricted. It doesn't even include this Chat Noir, otherwise that would be loopy, so you wouldn't want to do that actually. But like, it's something that exists, so you know, worth considering, and you know, it's an option that the deck has. The stride, this stride itself is obviously very solid too, but you know, that's just like the main combo that I really wanted to point out as well. Next, Honorary Professor did get a new grade 3, which is Chaverite or Chaverite. When this unit is ridden, you can choose essentially grade 3 or cards equal to grade 3 from your hand and discard them. And if you do, you search your deck for up to 2 cards with Honorary Professor in their different names and put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. So there's quite a lot of Honorary Professors, as you'll see as we go through these cards in this set. But obviously also older things too. So there's quite a lot of targets for this guy, so it's overall quite good. Usually you're going to try to, you know, discard a grade 3, otherwise you're minusing and not actually plussing from the skill. Second skill is when you stride a Honorary Professor in his original name, so it is restricted to that. You can almost 1. If you do, you search your deck for up to 1 grade 3 card, put it into your Vanguard circle as a heart, and shuffle your deck out, and if you put a card, you return this card to your hand. So it's kind of like a fixer. If you want to be on Chat Noir, then you fix it into Chat Noir, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting role. I'm not sure how much play this will see. I didn't really see too many Chat Noir or just Honorary Professor decks topping lately, but like, I'm not sure how much play this was gonna see. But you know, it is an interesting concept, so we'll see how that evolves. Next, there's Boot Camp Simric or Kimric. When this unit is called, if you have Vanguard with Honorary Professor in its card name, you may have this unit get plus 4k until end of turn, but if you do at the end of that turn, he will be retired. And then his drop zone skill, so once he's retired, is when your unit with Honorary Professor in its card name is placed on Vanguard circle by writing from a grade 3 unit, you may counterblast 1, and if you do, return him to your hand. So, you know, it cannot be retrieved from stride or from writing like from 2 to 3, so it does have to be, you know, overriding the grade 3s, either break writing or you know, by the skill. So it is something that's kind of nice, but he's kind of an interesting card. I don't know, like, his first skill is free, and that's quite nice. Like, it's a 4k, like, he, you know, pops himself off, but you can, you know, stack things onto him to make it, you know, be a little bit more reliable. But I'm not sure if he's that great. I like the drop zone skill is nice, but you won't be using it that much just because of, you know, the way that the skill is worded. Next is Sitter Bobtail. I inserted an H after that S and I slightly regret it. Anyway, he is a perfect guard but only for Honorary Professor units, and when he's retired from Guardian Circle, you choose any number of cards from your soul with Honorary Professor in their card names and put them to your hand. That's kind of interesting because you can potentially like put like what, 5 cards? I mean, I'm not sure how much the deck actually soul charges, but I think like potentially possibly like 5 cards into soul. That's kinda insane, I want to say, because like, you know, just by finishing your perfect guard you can plus a lot. Like sure, you do lose your soul, but are you going to be using it that much anyway? I'm not too sure. Next is Trickle British. So when this unit is chosen for the effect of your Vanguard with Honorary Professor's card name, until end of turn this unit gets plus 4k, and the skill that when it's retired during your end phase, you can choose up to 1 Honorary Professor card from your drop zone and to return it to your hand. So, you know, there are a lot of cards that refer to Honorary Professor in their like effects, but like there's not that many with their names being Honorary Professor, so you know, there's not a super great amount of targets, but still, you know, still does get something off, but it is at once per turn, but at least it is free. Next is a new grade 1, which is Adorable Belliness. Act, you may rest it. If you have a Vanguard with Honorary Professor in its card name, you can choose one of your other rear guards and it gets plus 4k until end of turn. At the end of that turn, you countercharge 1 and retire that unit. So it's like a lot of these skills obviously aren't on GB1, which is quite interesting, you know, but it is Honorary Professor, so it makes sense. But you know, gaining an extra 4k is definitely worth it. You know, it basically how the deck works. But I think the best part of this skill is obviously the counter charge. It is at the end of the turn, so you won't be able to just like, you know, rest and then pop it off, because you know you're gonna need it on the field to get that counter charge. But still a pretty good card for a fairly good deck. Next is the starter Aaron Somali. When your unit with Honorary Professor in its card name is placed on a Vanguard circle, you may put him into the soul. If you do choose a card with Honorary Professor in its card name from your drop zone or soul and return it to your hand. So it's a question if you'll have it by then, but luckily it's not like, you know, it's not mandatory. So like you don't have to use it the moment you ride up to grade 3, but like when you stride and you've already paid the cost, you can essentially like slide him into the soul to retrieve the stride fodder. So it's nice for that function, but I don't think he's like, there still are better. I think like Rabbit is still the better starter even for this. So that's just my 2 cents on it, and that's actually the last Honorary Professor card, so we're gonna move on to Big Belly. Next we have the new grade 3 Amazing Professor Big Belly. He has success 20k on Vanguard and Rearguard circles, and he has the Vanguard skill that when he's ridden or your G-unit strides, once per turn you can choose a card from your hand and call it your Rearguard circle, and it gets plus 4k until end of turn. And if you call the card at the end of that turn, you draw a card and retire that Rearguard. So the draw is, it precedes the retire, so if you have any skills that don't let it be retired, it won't be retired, you still get the draw. But honestly in this clan that's not really a problem. And then his second skill is Vanguard and Rearguard circles. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If this unit is successful, Counterblast 1 on GB1. If you do choose one of your other rearguards, stand and gets plus 4k until end of turn. This is really nice because it works on rearguard circles, so you know, it's like a mini Korean Tiger except you don't get that extra draw, but it's still really good, and like this Big Belly is really solid, so it's definitely a favorite for the current Big Belly deck. You know, obviously more info on that on Mr. Solemn Vanguard, he's good at these things. The next Big Belly card that we have is Artistic Ocelot, who's also pretty good. So this is a triple rare, and on Vanguard and Rearguard circle has the once per turn skill. When this unit attacks, choose up to one of your other rearguards and it gets plus 4k until end of turn. At the end of that turn, retire that unit. So this is basically already a binoculars to start off with, but it gets even better because it still has another skill, which is an act once per turn GB1 Camus 1. If you have a Vanguard with Big Belly in its card name, you choose one of your other rearguards and it gets plus 4k until end of turn. And at the end of that turn, you draw a card and retire that unit. So from GB1 onwards, you can stack both of those 4k buffs on the same unit, and you know, then be able to, you know, get the draw off as well. So it's definitely quite good, but it's also good just for the early game because that first skill is not restricted to GB1, and that makes it really nice. So overall, this is a really good grade 2 for the deck, and I know that like the rush variants of Big Belly are running this at high counts as well. Next, Big Belly did get a perfect guard in Deli Belly, so it can protect any unit. And then his skill is when he's retired from Rearguard Circle or Guardian Circle is Soul Blast 1 on GB1 if you have a Big Belly Vanguard. And if you do, you draw up to one card and countercharge 1. So I've heard some people say that they like this perfect guard a lot because of that extra card draw, and also, you know, the countercharge is also nice. But especially that card draw, because like, you know, it's basically like the countercharge is like the already countercharging PG, except you can guard anything. And you know, on top of that, you do get the card draw, but I know some people don't like the soul cost that it has. But you know, it's I think it's overall very good. I know some people still want to play just the default countercharging one regardless, just so that to save soul, because the new Big Belly does use up soul as well. So it's, I understand where they're coming from. I think in the end it's a pretty tight choice for perfect guards, but this one is definitely a very good one to, have a choice from. Next is the heal for the entire, well, for basically the whole clan, which is Automatism Koala. So this is the same heal skill as we've seen in every clan so far. But I guess for this, I'm actually not sure if, it depends on the deck whether you get the counter charge or the soul charge off, but, I think it's still good regardless. Next up, we have the rare stride, that is Immortality Professor Vairagya. So at success, 25k, and when it becomes successful, choose up to 5 of your rear guards, and until end of turn they get the resist. And the skill that at the end of your turn you retire this unit, and then if you choose 3 or more, you draw a card. So pretty nice, rare stride, honestly. Like, some of the rare strides in this set are actually fairly solid, and that's actually quite cool to see. But success 25k can be a little bit steep, I think, but at least for the first stride turns. But apart from that, it's quite nice. The resist is definitely quite cool. So this stride isn't all that, half-baked as some would say. I think it's actually not that bad. Next is a new G-Guard, which is Immortality Professor Sankalpa. So when you guard with it, you count +1, and if you do, choose one of your rear guards, and that unit and your Vanguard get +4k until the end of that battle into each of your open circles. Then if the chosen rear guard's power is 20k or greater, you draw a card. So in an ideal world, you'll have one rear guard and one Vanguard when using this, but that's going to be a bit steep, but it is possible to get that off, and that way even if you have 2, getting the +12k from the 3 existing ones does get you an extra card. So you'd only really use this enchantment where in games, or parts of the game where you can get that second skill off to get the draw card. Otherwise the count +1 is a little bit steep. Next is Bicolor Baku. Has success 20k, and at the end of your turn, if this unit is not successful, you choose one of your rear guards and retire it and put it on the bottom of your deck. So this is a grade 2 with 11k power, so it is, it does have a little bit of a restriction, so you do have to hit that success if you wanna, not have to pay the cost. But what's nice is that even if you retire something, you put it on the bottom of your deck. So it actually can have some interesting, interesting ways to interact with your field, because if you retire something and then draw off of it, you're gonna get the draw off anyway, but then putting it back to deck might actually help you in the long run, so you might not want to actually hit success in the early turns, but this 11k power is definitely quite nice, and I like the design of the card overall. Next is Body Faction Maux. So success 20k, and once per turn when this unit boosts until end of turn, this unit gets the skill that when he's retired from your guard circle during your end phase specifically, you draw a card. And if he was retired while successful, then you may put this card on the bottom of your deck. So one again in a similar style, it's kind of like recycling itself instead of being able, being retired, which not only helps with just recycling units, but helps to not deck out in this deck, which does deck out fairly easily, to begin with, because of how much advantage it gains. So I think this is a step in the right direction, but I kind of wish more of the cards in the set were able to take that step. But, you can't ask for too much, but I think this is a solid first step, as I said. Next, there's a reprint of Mini Belly, which is the Big Belly Searcher, as well as Stride Fodder for the clan. And then we have a really good common grade 3 in Talented Rhinos. So he has success 20k, and then in continuous GB1 on rearguard circle, if this unit is successful, this unit gets +4k, and your opponent cannot call grade 0 cards to Guardian Circle from hand for that battle if this unit attacked. This interacts with Mana Garmer in a pretty disgusting way, where essentially once you hit success on the Mana Garmer turn, your opponent can only G-Guard against him, because every other grade is forbidden. That is, pretty interesting. Well, G-Guard, and I guess grade 2 and grade 3 call guard as well, but this is pretty disgusting, in my opinion, because it combos pretty well, and the deck is able to search, because of Mika Saburo, you can search this guy out so easily, so it's definitely not exactly like a steep condition or anything. So this is a really, really good common grade 3 that is run, I think, in Big Belly decks just because of how solid it is. Next, we have Matrix Code Zebra. GB1, when this unit is called, look at the top card of your deck, and you may call that card to rearguard circle, and if you call the unit with a success ability, increase this unit's power by the original unit's power of that unit until end of turn, and then shuffle your deck. So only 8k base, but essentially it works like the the Musketeer grade 2 that just calls you a unit, but it's on GB1, which makes it a bit slow. If this was not on GB1, I think it'd be really nice and possibly quite playable, but for now it's just a bit of a filler slot. Next we have a new grade 1 in Animal Clip Lesser. Success 20k, and when this unit boosts, you may have this unit get plus 4k until end of battle. If you do until end of turn, this unit gets the skill that at the end of your turn you retire this unit, and if you have a face-up card in your G-Zone, then if this unit was retired while being successful, you draw a card and countercharge 1. A bit of it, it doesn't say GB1 on the skill, so you can potentially actually like give him 4k, you can potentially like, even not on GB1, give him the 4k, but then he will sadly still get retired, but you won't be able to get anything off of it. So usually you would probably wait till you have at least one face-up card in your G-Zone. But I don't think it's a bad card, but I think the deck really doesn't have space, because like you're playing 4 PGs, 4 Mikasabros, 4 Stride Fodders usually because of searching possibilities, and then like you have like a little bit of space, but honestly like it's a little bit tight, so I don't see where you'd be able to fit this in. Next is Stationary Hero. So this is a new starter. You can combo one as an act and rest him. Choose one of your rear guards with his accessibility and gets plus 4 on a turn. At the end of that turn, you retire that unit. And GB1, you can slide him into the soul. If you have a successful unit, draw a card. So in both of the skills interact with each other. So it's like combo one and rest, and then you can slide him into the soul to get an extra card if you want to. I still think that the Rabbit is the better starter. I'm a bit, I guess you could say, stubborn about it. Like I used to play Great Nature for a very short time during the when Cathpalooq was first released. So like I remember the deck quite well, and it was a lot of fun. But I didn't enjoy it enough to keep it. So that's why I say this. Next we have a new crit, which is Approval Frigate. It has an act, slide into the soul to give one of your units plus 3k. On a crit, that's definitely quite nice, and definitely not something to complain about. And then next, there is the new stand trigger, which is SAS the Apoon. And skill is when your other rear guard is retired during your end phase, you make an almost one and put it into the soul, and if you do, you draw a card. So basically getting you extra cards, but the counterblast is a little bit concerning. And then finally, there's a reprint of Pawn Belly, which is the Big Belly crit. So that wraps up the Great Nature section. We kind of blazed through that because things with Great Nature cards is that they're all designed fairly simply. Like there's nothing too complicated to talk about, and it's like which ones are good, and like it's easy to describe why they're good. So it doesn't really like go very deep, but it's still a very I still think it's a very fun clan, especially now with like the new Big Belly. Like it combines like you can stand your stuff even more, so it makes for a bit more interesting combo turns as well. So overall, the clan is definitely looking quite good out of this set as well, with Barrow definitely carrying it quite hard as well. All in all, though, the Great Nature support, at first I was not that impressed with it, because I was like, oh, this looks good on paper, but how is it even going to perform? But then actually, the moment I realized how good it was when one of the, I think most well-known judges in Asia as a whole, Joshua Rava, actually played against me, and I was like, wow, this is actually very solid. So I think overall Great Nature is looking quite good for the upcoming future, and we'll see, just how it keeps competing as time goes on. Moving on, however, we do have new Nectar, and we're going to be starting off with the new GR, which is Flower Princess of 4 Seasons Velhelmina. So Velhelmina's got 2 skills, first one of which is when this unit attacks anything, so that's quite nice, doesn't have to attack the Vanguard. You can counterblast 1 and flip a G unit face up. If you do, you search for up to 2 grade 2 or less normal units with the Bloom ability and the same card names, and call them to separate rearguard circles on the front and back row, and then you shuffle your deck. So right off the bat, very easy to use from the very get-go. You can first try this and search for 2 cards just for counterblast 1 and a flip. So it's definitely quite nice. Already it's a solid, a solid start, and it can attack anything, which I also quite like. Then the second skill is a continuous GB4. All your rear guards in your front row get plus 5k and plus 1 crit. That is kind of intense because they essentially just gave a Dimax to Neo Nectar, and that's they're not even trying to avoid it. They're just straight up like, yeah, this is a Dimax. And like what's nice is that on first stride you won't be able to use it obviously, but you can get the search off. But then like second stride onwards, you don't always have to even if you don't need to use the first skill, but like why wouldn't you, because it gives you free attacks. You can still use it just for the crit and the plus 5k to your front row, which is definitely quite nice. But unlike Dimax, it's only your rear guards that get the crit. She doesn't get the crit herself, but it's definitely still a very nice thing. And it looks like all clans, well, not all clans, but a lot of the clans lately are getting crits on their rear guards, which is definitely quite a scary, skill to do. But I think it's very interesting that they're going in that direction. So this is a solid stride, obviously a bit more bloom restricted, so you're not really going to see this used much in things like Musketeers, but still a very solid stride. Now we're going to go over the Musketeer stuff, beginning with Maiden Lily Musketeer Captain Virginal Cecilia. So this is the new Cecilia Stride, and this time she's actually good and not restrictive. So act once per turn, Canvas 1 and Persona Flip, choose up to 5 of your rearguards and retire them. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck and call up to the same number of cards with Musketeer in their card names as the number of retired units among them to separate rearguard circles, and they get +3 cancel end of turn for each face-up card in your G-Zone with Musketeer in their card names, and then you shuffle your deck. This is really good because on first stride you're already basically, refreshing your field and giving everyone +3k. And then, as the game prolongs, it's only going to get better because you also have the Musketeer G-Guard that we're going to see later on. There's 2 other Musketeer strides to begin with. You can play the old Cecilia just for the sake of, flipping with the old Musketeer stride. So, it's all this kind of stuff that you can do because, just to make sure you get the most out of her. But because Musketeers play quite fast, I don't think you'll use this too often because, you're aiming to end the game by second stride, I would say, because the deck is definitely very fast and it can sustain itself quite well as well. So I think this is a really nice stride, and Musketeers are looking really solid from this set in my opinion. And I know there's quite a lot of people that are very passionate Musketeer mains, so it's definitely very nice to see. Next we have Lantana Musketeer Rosetta. So this one is our new grade 3 strider, so joining Miareta, and his first skill is when your G unit with Musketeer in his original card name strides, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck and call up to 1 Musketeer from among them to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So no cost, that's a free +1, so it's definitely quite nice. You don't have to retire one to call one, you don't have to counterblast one or soul blast one, nothing. You just stride into a Musketeer and you get a free unit. So already a very strong start, and then a continuous GB1. Instead of paying for stride by discarding a grade 3, if you're going to stride into a Musketeer, you may counterblast 1 and choose 2 Musketeer normal units in their card names from your drop zone and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. So that's a really nice addition. Gives you a different way to stride essentially. If you don't have a grade 3, it lets you go with that. So it's definitely quite nice. I think again these 2 cards are already a very good start for Musketeers as a whole. And I think the deck is looking quite good. Although I'm not sure how this, I'm not sure how I feel about Miareta being not really replaced, but kind of having to compete for space with Rosetta. But still, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but it's something. Now there are some other Musketeer cards in the set that are essentially generic, so we're going to go over them later when we're going over the generic stuff. For now I'm just going to cover the actual Musketeers. So the next one of which is going to be Artemisia Musketeer Chiara. So this is the perfect guard, but only guards Musketeers, but most of the deck, if not all of it, is going to be Musketeers anyway. And then it has a drop zone skill where you can bind it and choose another card from your drop zone and put it in the bottom of your deck. Even if you do, you choose one of your units with Musketeer in its card name, and it gets +2 cancel end of turn. So it's end of turn, which is definitely nice because you can turn anything into 11k attacker, and because the deck tends to play stands, you tend to, be able to, have the chance to at least restand them, and so that extra little, pump gives you a magic number which you can abuse a little bit. Plus with all the buffs that the deck gives you now, with both the new stride and the old Musketeer stride, you're able to actually, maximize the potential that it gives you, so I think this is actually a pretty good perfect guard, and it's only a rare. Up next we have a grade 2 Cyclamen Musketeer Favilla. Rearguard once per turn GB1. When your other Musketeer is called, you can choose one of your rearguards with Musketeer in its card name other than this unit, and until end of turn, that unit and this unit get +6k and resist. That's really cool because it splits resist over 2 units, only once per turn, but I think as long as you give resist to your front rows, that's probably the best idea, it's just so you can keep up doing your stuff without the Griffin being a big fear. So I think this is a good unit. It's the +6k is a nice, cherry on top. It's only once per turn, but you have other things buffing anyway. So I think the main reason why you run this card is because of the resist, but I think it's really good and definitely worth running for. And then next we have Black Rose Musketeer Verneri, and it has a GB1 rearguard circle continuous. If you have Vanguard with Musketeer in its card name, this unit gets +1k for each of your other units with Musketeer in their card names. This does work on your opponent's turn as well, as long as you're in GB1, so it's definitely quite nice. I think it's because you're still going to be buffing up your units, this is sort of I don't know, it's it's obviously a better Mirka because you're usually going to have a full field, so it's, it gets for every unit, so it's not just for rear guard, so usually you'll get a +5k on him, so it's going to be, a 12k booster / attacker, and it can stay like that on the opponent's turn too, so it's definitely quite a nice grade 1, and I think there should possibly be some space for it as well, but I'm not too keen on it. But one card that I'm definitely sure that the Musketeer players will be making space for is Takija Musketeer Daphne. So this is the stride fodder for Musketeers. The first skill is if you have Vanguard with Musketeer in his card name, this card may be discarded as a grade 3 while paying the cost for stride. So you can stride into anything as long as you have a Musketeer Vanguard, and this will be counted as a grade 3, so definitely the thing that Musketeers needed, so this is really good that it can be used generically. And then the second skill is, when you do discard it for Stride, and if you have Vanguard with Musketeer in its original card name, you can count +1. If you do, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck and call up to 1 card with Musketeer from among them to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So it got even better because on top of being a, a Stride fodder, if you do Stride into a Musketeer, you can actually get another unit out of it. So like with a new grade 3, you're getting a free unit and then count +1 to get another unit, and then you can start doing your engine quite easily even if you got your field wiped. So it's actually a very nice skill, and this Stride fodder is looking very solid and definitely going to be a staple in the deck for now. Next is a new starter, which is Kaluna Musketeer Elma. So this is a Forerunner and has GP1. When your Vanguard with Musketeer and its card name attacks, you may count +1 and put it on the bottom of the deck. If you do look at top 4, call a Musketeer from among them, and then it gets +4k until end of turn, and you shuffle your deck. It's cool that it returns to the bottom of the deck because then you can actually call it, after you've shuffled, because you will, shuffle from the skill itself. You have a chance to actually, like with your next search skill, possibly get it off again, and then just reuse it every turn, and that's definitely cool because just, for count +1, you're getting an extra unit and 4k on it as well. So it's actually very nice, and I think the starter is looking quite solid too. A bit of a shame it's on GB1, but I think it might be a bit too easily abused if it wasn't, because then you could actually you can actually get it off from turn 1 onwards, like from the very first attack, and so I think you'd be gaining a little bit too much advantage in that case, because you can always call it, and even if you call it, it's going to be a 9k, so on, turn 2, that's a little bit threatening. So I think it's good that it's on GB1. It might be a bit annoying if it wasn't, but it's still a really good card. And now the remaining cards are all, they're Musketeers, but they work generically, so we're going to go over them later, but now we're going to move on to Asha. So we're going to kick off with the new grade 3 that is Ranunculus of Phantasmic Blue Asha, or just Bluesha for short. So this, boastful looking new grade 3 has 2 skills, first one of which is at the beginning of your right phase. You choose up to 1 card each from your circle other than Vanguard circle and your drop zone and put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you put 2 cards, draw a card and choose up to 1 card from your hand and call it to rearguard circle. This is amazing because choosing any circle other than Vanguard circle means you can, just return a locked unit to the bottom of your deck. That's right. So this is already really good because it's an answer to Link Choker every single turn, so you can get 1 unit unlocked every turn, and that's really, really nice. And on top of that, by putting back something from your drop zone, which you're going to do anyway, you also get to draw an extra card, which is really good in the long run. And then you get to call from hand, which is basically just to make up for it. You're obviously not going to deck search after that. But on that topic, we go into the stride skill, which is when your G unit strides, you may count +1 to search your deck for up to 1 normal unit with the bloom ability. Call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. And if the number of your units with the same card name as that unit is 2 or more, you cannot charge 1 soul charge 1. So I said that it's not call from deck, but you go beginning of right phase, call from hand, and then legit the next step is to stride and call something from your deck. So really, really good stride. It does basically everything. It unlocks, it recycles, it draws you an extra card, and then it also deck searches, it counter charges, it soul charges, it does everything. This is the only other thing it could do is give you resist, but this is already such an amazing card. This grade 3 is incredibly strong, and I remember the SP is one of the most expensive ones right now. It's 20k yen, which is $200, so it's really, really, really expensive. But it's a really good card, and I think it's expensive for a reason. Next card of which is going to be Collective Blooming Maiden Kara, and she's doing that good old OK hand right there. So her first skill is a continuous. If you have Vanguard with Ranunculus in its card name or the bloom ability, this unit gets +1k and resist. So it's important to see that the bloom ability, because that means that you can actually use this on turn 2. You can get that +1k and the resist off. So you won't have Ranunculus on turn 2, obviously, but you can have the bloom part. So the resist is really nice. Like I said, Asha doesn't give resist, but this is a resist. That's really cool. And then her second skill is once per turn, bloom GB1. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on rearguard circle until end of turn, this unit gets +10k and boost. So 20k boost to anyone, we take those. So with resist and 20k and still more power coming for her on top of that, that's definitely really good. And it is bloom. This one's only once per turn, but still really, really, really good. And this card is also very much deserving of the triple rare spot, just like the Great Nature one was as well. So I think this is really strong and just an amazing grade 2 at that. Asha also got a new Perfect Guard in Tierney. So this can guard any ranunculus unit, so it's not every unit, so it's a bit unfortunate, but you know, what can you do? But there is a Bloom Dropzone skill where you can bind it face up when your unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, and if you do, you choose a card with the Bloom ability from your drop zone and return to your hand. So technically, because you do have to bind this card face up, so like when you would PG, if you have 2 of them in the drop zone, you bind one, but you can retrieve the other one into your hand, so that way, like, you know, that you get that off at least, but you can obviously get any Bloom out of the drop zone, so it's pretty cool. You won't get the Stridewater out, unfortunately, but like pretty much a lot of your deck you will be able to salvage, which is pretty cool, and I think that makes this Perfect Guard worth running. Next is the generic heal, but this time it has Musketeer in the name, so that's what I meant. Like, this is a Musketeer, so it's really good for Musketeer decks, but this card is also like quite expensive because it's like you need it in both Asha and Musketeers, well, basically in every new Nectar deck, just like all these heals really, but like this is really nice. You know, again, counter charge or soul charge, always gonna be good. And then there's the rare stride, which is Sacred Tree Dragon Break Weather Dragon. So when he's put into G-Zone from Vanguard Circles, so at the end of your turn, you choose any number of your normal units with different card names from your rearguard circles and drop zone, and return them to your deck and shuffle your deck. If you returned 5 or more cards, you draw a card and countercharge 1, soul charge 1. So always nice because it includes drop zone, so like you can, you know, not have to select anything from your drop zone. You can just select everything from I mean, not select anything from your field and then select just from your drop zone, and then you get an extra draw and a counter charge soul charge 1. So it doesn't do much during the battle phase, but like at the end of everything, it will give you a little bit of advantage, so it's not that bad for rare, although I don't think you'll have space in a competitive deck whatsoever. Here's the next generic Musketeer card, which is Bond Protector Musketeer Antero, which is what Tokoha happened to become known for developing bonds with units even after they're dead, and so Antero came back as a G-Guard, so his spirit still stays with us. So his skill is, when you guard with him, you soul blast 1. If you do it until the end of that battle, this unit gets plus 5k shield. Then if the number of your rear guards is 1 or less, or 4 or more, this unit gets plus 15k shield. It's a really interesting text, because it's like between 2 and, if you have 2 or 3, you won't get the extra 15k, but it's like, if you have 1, you get the 15k. If you have, you know, 4 or 5, you get the 15k. So it's kind of like oddly specific, but obviously you can use other things when you're on 2 or 3, or even like a G-Guard, like, you know, to put yourself up in terms of rear guard numbers, you know, Gridora matchup and whatnot. But this is definitely a very good G-Guard. It's like the Soul Blast one doesn't hurt you at all, because the deck does have plenty of ways to, you know, get that soul. So this is definitely a very good G-Guard that is highly worth running in the deck. Next we have Cumulative Maiden Purcell. Bloom, Vanguard, and Rearguard Circle once per turn. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, you may count plus 1. If you do, you draw a card, and if you have a grade 4 Vanguard, this unit gets plus 8k until end of turn. So the draw is actually not on GB1. Well, you don't have to have a grade 4 Vanguard for it, so it's definitely actually very good, because that's a little bit of extra advantage you can get, you know, without, you know, you won't be able to hit for the magic number that you you can do with her second part of the skill. But the fact that her first part isn't on GB1 is actually quite nice. I'm not sure if she'll see play. I think the grade 2 space is a bit too tight, but I think for budget options she's actually not that bad. Next is a reprint of Pedmini, so this is the Ranunculus / Asha Searcher, as well as the basic Stride Fodder. And then we have Repeated Cultivation Maiden Leslie. She has Bloom once per turn. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, you may soul charge 1. So as I said, you know, waste the soul charge. This also works on your turn 1, turn 2, etc. So it's actually pretty nice, but only once per turn. And then the second skill is a GB1. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted a unit with the Bloom ability. You may Soul Blast 2 and retire her. If you do, you search your deck for up to 1 card with the same card name as the unit that was boosted, call it to Rearguard Circle, and shuffle your deck. So you essentially, you don't want to, you know, you can kill off the one that was boosted, obviously, but you can also like call it to a different column as well. It doesn't have to be on the same circle, but you know, you do get an extra attack out of this, so it's definitely quite nice. Soul Blast 2 might be a bit steep, I'm not sure. I think like you can still sustain enough soul to use this, but I'm not sure. Again, like Asha has a lot of different builds as well, like there's a lot of different like engines that you can essentially use, but I think this card is actually not that half bad either. Next up is the San Mango. So this is the Act GB1 stand. You may Soul Blast 1 and retire him. You draw a card and choose one card each from your Vanguard and Rearguards. Increase the chosen Vanguard's power by the chosen Rearguard's power until end of turn. I'm not sure if this would have any use. Like I don't really see in which case you would, because like just to clarify, you cannot use this on a Zoa turn because you cannot select that Rearguard by the ability. But you know, that'd be kind of sick. But yeah, this is interesting kind of card, like, because it's new Nectar. I'm trying to think, like, obviously you do build up your rearguards like crazy, but a lot of it does happen in the battle phase when you're doing like the mid battle phase calls, so I'm not really sure how this interacts, but like it's another meme stand, so I'm definitely not opposed to it. Next is Poinsettia Flower Maiden Granule. Bloom, Vanguard and rearguard circles once per turn GB1. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on rearguard circle during your turn, until end of turn she gets plus 10k. But if she's on your Vanguard circle, she also gets a crit. I don't think it's that useful because like that crit is like GB1 onwards, so like you won't really use it that way. It's nice for the rearguard circle skill because like although it's once per turn, so it's like the plus 10k is nice, but it's once per turn. It's like you can do a lot more with the Bloom skills that aren't once per turn, so that's kind of my problem with this. Next is Promotion Maiden Lipset. Bloom, rearguard circle once per turn. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on rearguard circle, choose all of your units in the same row as this unit until end of turn. They get plus 4k. Then if you have a face-up card in your G zone, they get boost. So the first part again is not on GB1, so you can get that buff off, you know, immediately. But if you do have a face-up card in your G-Zone, then you also get the boost, which, you know, can be quite useful with, you know, a 13k base, because she does include herself in the row selection, so it's not your other units, it's all your units, so you can actually make it work that way. It's a pretty interesting card, but again, I'm not too sure if it would see play. Like, I'm not the most well-versed in Asha, but again, I feel like there are better things to save your space for. Next is Dragon Seed Spitter. Act once per turn, count +1. Choose one of your Vanguards, and this unit gains the name of that card until end of turn. And if the number of your units with the same card name as your Vanguard is 3 or more, this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn. So this, you know, benefits if you can copy your Vanguard all the time, which, you know, most, well, apart from Musketeers, most other new Nectar decks can do fairly easily, I think. But it's a bit of a meme, but an interesting meme while we're at it. And then Asha got a new starter, which I'm not too sure on, but this is Planting Maiden Ozu. So Bloom once per turn. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on rearguard circle, this unit gets plus 2k until end of turn. So it becomes a 7k booster, so you usually would call this to the side. And then another skill is count +1 and slide it into the soul. When your grade 1 or greater card with the Bloom ability is placed on rearguard circle, you may pay the cost if you do draw a card. Now, at first I thought this was kind of meh, because I was like, oh, you have much better starters. But we are in, like, Link Joker and Kagero meta where like your starter disappears like that fast. It disappears as fast as your wallet does when you start playing Asha. So like I think this isn't actually a bad skill, because like also like with Gallop I'm starting to think of like using that new like the Lego starter, just because like you can use this turn 1 and like immediately get yourself an extra card, and like that way it doesn't get sniped and you still get something out of your starter before it actually dies. So I think it's not actually half bad, like until the Link Joker and Kagero meta dies down. I think that's actually quite usable, but we'll see like how that progresses as the, you know, as the meta changes and shifts. Next is the last like Musketeer generic unit, which is Marigold Musketeer Rochelle. So rearguard and Guardian Circle and Dropzone skill GB1. This card may be regarded as a normal unit instead of a trigger unit. That's really cool because as we noticed in the Musketeer unit, it does put back the normal units back to your deck, so you can actually select the, it has to be Musketeer, but this is a Musketeer and it can be selected as a normal unit, so that's really, really cool that you can do that. So this is good in Asha, this is good in everything basically. This crit is like super good, and like it's very, very simple, but it's really, really good. And finally, we have a reprint of the Asha crit, which is Milis. So again, just another crit reprint. So overall, both Asha and Musketeers are looking very solid from this set, especially Asha, I would say, is one of the, like, tier 1.5 decks, I would say. I know people don't like the term tier 1.5, but like, it's like tier 1, but like, it does really well in the Chaos matchup, but I think like the other things like Overlord are still a bit too fast in their field nuking. I think even with the resists, like it's a little bit slow, I think. So really depends, but it depends how fast you can set up your field and like you know, deploy your actual resist units. But apart from that, like I think it can still struggle against Overlord a little bit, so that's why like it's kind of like shaky, and I'm not sure, I don't think it deals that well with the Leader matchup 2, which is currently a very strong contender as well. But overall, I think Asha is definitely a very solid pick for the upcoming tournament season. So I think if you're, you know, going to get excited about competing with Asha, then I think, you know, that is a good thing to be hyped about. And now finally the clan that I'm not, you know, I don't play, but I'm still very excited to talk about, which is Megacolony, because this is adding a new, like, type of environment to the game, where Megacolony is now a threat, and it does some things that are like, whoa, like, you wouldn't really expect this to have been in the game, but, you know, it came anyway, so it's definitely not something to complain about. Or, well, it may be something to complain about for those of you that are facing Megacolony, but not for Megacolony users, that's for sure. we're going to be starting off with the most expensive GR in the set, which is basically a 4 of in all decks because it's that insane, which is Poison, Sickle, Mutant Deity, Overwhelm. She's got 2 really solid skills. The first one of which is an act once per turn, counterblast 1 and flip a unit face up. Draw the same number of cards as the number of your opponent's resting rearguards, and if the number of your opponent's resting rearguards is 1 or less, this unit gets +1 crit, +1 drive until end of turn. So it's like, I'm gonna either, if you have a full field, I'm gonna like just fill up my hand easy for like a 1 counterblast. But if you decided to not call anything, well then I'm just gonna get myself a crit and still get 1 card off my draw and 1 card off my drive check. So it's like, you know, do what you want. So this is like a really solid first strike skill because it's like, you know, you got a lot of cards, then I'll get a lot of cards. You don't have any cards, then I'll get a drive and a crit to hit you with some pressure. Like, God, it's just insane how much this does. And like obviously it's going to be your every stride because no matter which scenario your opponent's in, like you're either getting a bunch of cards in there or like, you know, you're just getting an extra crit and a drive. The only other thing is like you'll go into Optirandas to like not let them call anything if you're playing against the clan that's able to like, you know, like any of the paladins, like anything like that, you know what I mean. But the second skill is a continuous GB3 Dark Device. All of your units get +2k for each face down card in your opponent's damage zone. This is quite strong, but you know, we do have a lot of cards in every deck basically that can unflip in the middle of the battle phase. So this is, you know, a continuous, so if you countercharge in the middle, like, you know, through a perfect guard in the middle of the battle phase, then you will be taking off one of those 2Ks from the Gridora player, you know. You can also like you know, G-guard and then like countercharge from that and then like, you know, use the heal to countercharge again. So it's like, you can actually play around that GB3, but the first skill is just so devastating, honestly. It's really crazy. So now we're going to quickly go over the machining stuff first, and first we're going to have the Stride, which is Oppression, Mutant Deity, Machining Despo. So he has an act once per turn, counterblast 1 and flip a unit face up. If you have a hard card with machining in its card name, you choose the same number of units as the number of face-up cards in your G-zone with machining in their card names and stand them. Your opponent chooses 2 of their resting units for each unit stood, and they cannot stand during your opponent's next stand phase. It's just doing what machines do best in the end. Like, it interacts with the new grade 3 that we're going to take a look at in a second, you know, to be able to stand your units. But I think like skill wise this is like an alright skill, but because like it doesn't do too much apart from stunning, I don't think it's like super amazing. I really love the art though, it's like super mecha like, and so like I really like that part of it. But the one that I like a lot more is the new grade 3, which is Machining Beat Atlas. So his first skill is when you stride a machining, you may counterblast 1 if you do choose up to 2 grade 1 or greater cards from your soul with machining in their card names and call them separate rearguard circles as rest. So like I said, this like the new stride wants you to, you know, stand those resting rearguards. Also, I forgot to mention that like his color scheme and design is like super Evangelion like, so that's definitely very cool. Second skill is a GB2. At the end of your turn, you choose up to 2 cards in total with machining in their card names from your rearguard circle and hand, and put them into your soul. If you put 1 or more cards, you draw a card, and if you put 2 cards, you countercharge 1. So, interesting way to handle your resources, but you do want that extra soul, you know, from both your rearguard circles and hand, and that way, you know, you can get it for your next like stride turn, and you can, you know, just call those units back and keep recycling them, and that way like Overlord and like Chaos won't get rid of them, and you're going to be able to, you know, still use them later on. And the countercharge +1 draw is also quite nice, and the GB2 is also not that hard to achieve. So I think this is actually a pretty great grade 3. I really love the design of it, and that's like one of the reasons why I really like what the new machining's got. But like just the design on its own is like super good. Next is Machining Tardigrade. So this is the perfect guard, so you can only guard machining units, but when it's retired from your guardian circle you may soul charge 1. And so it's quite simple, but this is all the deck really needs because you want that extra soul to call the units that you soul charge, so it's definitely quite nice. So I think it's like, it does what it needs to do, it doesn't really have to be much more. And next is Machining Princess, and I agree with the flavor text, which is which part of that is considered a princess. Yeah, I feel. And her, I guess, skill is Act Rest Her. You choose one of your units with machining in its card name and it gets +3k until end of turn. So pretty simple, like you rest it but you can stand it again with your skill, so it's definitely not that bad. And then the second skill is once per turn GB2 you counterblast 1 as an act and you stand her, and until end of turn she gets the skill that at the end of this unit attack the Vanguard. If the number of your opponent's standing units is 0, you choose one of your other rearguards with machining its card name and stand it. Actually quite nice. It doesn't hit for 11, I kinda wish it hit for 11 because that way it'd be pretty cool, but like it interacts with its first skill, like you rest her for to buff something up. You can technically buff her up as well, so that way she's a 12k attacker, and then you're gonna stand her with the act, and then you're going to be able to stand her again, because usually, you know, all of your opponent's rest, you know, standing units will be at 0. So you'll be able to get that stand skill off as well. So I think that adds, you know, some extra multi-attacks into the deck, which is definitely something it needed, so it's not a bad thing at all. And Machining's also got a personalized stride fodder in Machining. Leafy is here. So, in hand it has a skill that when you have a Vanguard with Machining in its card name, this may be discarded as a grade 3 while paying the cost for stride. Again, just like the Musketeer one, this does work generically, so it will work, you know, like into any stride, including like Optirandos, Overwhelm, whatever you want. Second skill is when you do discard it to stride into a G unit with Machining in its card name, then you may Soul Blast 1. If you do, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and that unit cannot stand during your opponent's next stand phase. So if you already managed to rest something, which you probably have, this will be quite good. But, you know, it's like if you have cards that like stun for the whole turn, then this is gonna be like that can, like, you know, AoE stun, or like you already have enough stuff that can stun everything. This won't be as great, but I think it's still a pretty nice stride fodder, just like for the fact that it's a Machining with, you know, like stride fodder skill is already quite good. Next, we have a new Machining starter in Machining Bagworm. So, Forerunner, and if you have Vanguard with Machining its card name, this unit gets the act once per turn. You can rest him. If the number of your opponent's standing units is 0, you soul charge 1, and if it is not, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards and rest it. So it's like, you know, if you have everything rested, then I'll get an extra soul, which is basically an extra unit, and if not, then I'm just gonna, you know, rest something regardless. And then the other skill is you put it into the soul to choose one of your rear guards with Machining its card name and stand it. So you can do that after you've already rested it, so it's also quite nice. I think it's like a good starter. It does what the deck wants it to do, I think. So it's not like anything, it's not anything super amazing, but it's still like it works with what the deck needs to do. And then again, just like with the other clans, there are some Machinings that are basically generic that we'll go over as we're going over the other stuff. And next is the basically new deck, which is Evil Governor Darkface Gridora. So everyone's new wife, mostly for, you know, her actual anime user and the based voice actress, but her skills are, the first one of which is once per turn when you ride it or stride on top of her, you counterblast 1. If you do, you choose a column, and your opponent cannot call cards to the rear guard circle in that column during the next turn. You know, this is really devastating, because for a lot of decks this is like, wow, that's like, what am I supposed to do? But for cards like for decks like Great Nature, like they can actually call on the opponent's turn, because this is only on your opponent's next turn, so you can still call it during Gridora's turn, so it's not super bad, but it's still like quite devastating, because it's not just on stride, it's also when you ride it. So like if they go first and like you're still in grade 2 and they do this to you, it's like, damn, like there goes a lot of my aggression. So like for a lot of decks, this is actually like really bad news. And then on top of that, she has a GB1 at the beginning of your ride phase, so this won't work when you ride it the first time, it has to be like the next turn onwards. On GB1, obviously it doesn't work because it's on GB1, but Soul Blast 1, and if you do, your opponent chooses a face-up card in their damage zone and turns it face down, and you countercharge 1. So this, you know, just punishes you basically for no reason. It doesn't let you have any face-up damage to pay for your costs, so like, you know, what you want to be doing as a deck is to just like overextend on your counterblast and like just like make sure it's always flipped down regardless, because it's better to like overextend and like not have one random remaining counterblast up rather than have her flip it down and get a countercharge off herself. So really good pair of skills. Honestly, when this was first revealed, some people thought like, is this fake? But then like, you know, it was confirmed that it was real, and then like it took a while for people to appreciate just how strong she is, and then once people did realize, it was like, you know, it was just too late, because then everybody was picking her up, and then, you know, she's got waifu factor on top of that, so obviously, you know, everybody wants a piece of that cake. But, you know, it's definitely understandable. Moving on, we cannot go over Gridora without her right-hand man, intimidating mutant king Darkface Alicides, or Alcides, but I think it's Alicides. Anyway, when he's placed on Vanguard or rearguard circle, you may counterblast 1 and soul blast 1 to choose a column and rest all opponent's rearguards in that column, and they cannot stand during opponent's next stand phase. This already does more than all the Machining support combined. Like, I mean, obviously they're different decks, but like, this is already a very solid skill to begin with, because it stuns everything, and like Gridora doesn't let you call to one column, and then this like stuns everything, so it's just like, just like frustrates you very tremendously. But that second skill is where it's really at, which is a GB02 Dark Device. During the battle, this unit attacks the Vanguard. This unit gets plus 10k, and your opponent cannot intercept. That's pretty annoying, because the plus 10k is legit free, and the unintercept skill is annoying for, you know, even my deck like Dynexus, where I can't intercept with my grade 3s. and then basically anything really, because like you want to intercept usually with the 5k and then drop a 10k just to guard him, but it's like it's quite frustrating. But like for her right hand man, this is really good because like both of his skills work on rearguard circle, so it can just be sitting on your Ghidorah the whole turn and then like go, you know, just drop him on rearguard circle every time because he's that solid. So a really good card and definitely not something to laugh at. The next Dark Face supporting card, and also do pay attention, like these are Dark Face supporting cards, but Ghidorah is a Dark Face to begin with, so like, you know, it all works out. But this is the Perfect Guard, which is Black Weevil, so you can guard any Dark Face unit, so it's basically only grade 3s, so it's a little bit restrictive. But the second skill is a Drop Zone skill where you can bind 2 of them and draw a card and either counter charge 1 or soul charge 1. So cool because it gets you an extra card in hand. It does have to bind 2, so it's a little bit like you won't get it off that many times. But the counter charge / soul charge is also quite good. But I think at this point you'd still rather just use the counter charging Perfect Guard because like this is more restrictive in terms of guarding, and like the skill doesn't really give you that much more. So I think it's overall better to just use the old one in my opinion. Next is our heal that every clan gets. This time it has machining in its name, so it's pretty cool. Sadly, it looks like it's eating away at something mechanical. That doesn't make me very happy, so let's just move away from this. Next is the Rare Stride for Megacolony, which is Master Swordsman Mutant Deity Anguish Sword. This is actually quite solid. It's an act once per turn Dark Device, counterblast 1. You choose up the same number of units as the number of your opponent's resting units, and they get +4 gains on of turn. If you choose 3 or more, draw a card and countercharge 1. Like, hello? That's like, just like, I don't know, you buff everything up, and you get an extra card and countercharge. So like, if you're missing some overwhelms, I mean, obviously you'd first try to overwhelm regardless. Even if you have like, I guess if you have 1, you'd be a bit more careful with the timing. But like, it's still like, this is still a pretty nice budget option, I think, because it gets you the extra card and it gives you a buff, which is pretty nice for like pushing. But overall, like for a Rare Stride, this is like pretty intense. Next is the new G-Guard, which is Morphogean. So when you guard with it, if number of your opponent's standing rear guards is 2 or less, this unit gets +10 until end of battle. Simple, but just does what it needs to do. It's exactly like as you would expect, and so this is a pretty good G-Guard in my opinion. Next is Light Horn Mutant Dangerous Horn. So this one is when you write it or call it, you have to either have a Vanguard with Dark Face or you have to reveal a Dark Face in your hand, otherwise you lose 5k. So, you know, it's important to have that grade 3 in your hand, otherwise you get punished. And then you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Dark Face in its card name, and the number of your opponent's standing rear guards is 1 or less, he gets +6k. So just like that, 16k attacker, that's all you really needed to do. Doesn't cost anything, and that's how these 10ks tend to be. So I think is overall very solid. Next is Black Spear Mutant Bulg Wasp. GB1 Dark Device, when you call it, until end of turn you get +2k, and if the number of face down cards in your opponent's damage zone is 2 or more, you rest all of your opponent's units and this unit gets +5k. 16k, and you get to rest your opponent's whole field as long as your opponent has already counterblasted twice, or if you've forced, you know, enough counterblast. So it's really good. Overall very solid. So you have like 2 16k attackers just like that, and then, you know, you buff them up with whatever other, you know, with triggers usually, and that's like all you can really ask for. I think this is really solid because like it also rests everything, so that makes it a very stable card as a whole. Next is a reprint of Little Dorcas, which is the Dark Face Searcher / Stride Fodder for the whole clan. So it's not like every clan is getting this, so it's no big surprise. Next is a new grade 1, which is Flowing Mutant Twilight Matter. Has Dark Device, and when it boosts, if you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Dark Face in its card name, you may have this unit gain +3k until end of turn. If you do, at the end of the battle, you draw a card and put this into your soul. So it's just another Jeffrey clone, this time with Dark Device. Every clan, like every main grade 3 unit type thing of every clan is getting this, so it's overall, like, it was expected, I would say. Next is Lethargy Mutant Silk Sleeper. Vanguard and Rearguard GB1. While your opponent's unit in the same column as this unit is standing during your opponent's stand phase, only 1 card among them can stand. So when your opponent does their stand and draw, you know, you either don't stand your back row, don't stand your front row, but I think in most cases you're gonna let that back row stay rested. So interesting way to punish, but I'm pretty sure the deck has no space, and because it has no searchability, there's no point in running a one of this either, so I think it's overall just fodder and the budget option. Next is Vulgar Blister. If this unit is in your front row, all your opponent's rear guards in the same column as this unit cannot stand during your opponent's stand phase. And the second skill is that you may retire a Vulgar Blister from your rear guard circle as the cost for stride of your G unit with the Dark Device ability instead of the normal cost. So it's like, if in case you still need more stride fodders, basically you do run the Vulgar Blister, but I think overall you should be okay, I want to say. Next, we have Bad Luck Star, which kept coming up in the world stream as we were opening some of the zoo packs. So when you call it from hand, if the number of your opponent's resting units is 3 or more, you may Soul Blast 1. If you do, draw a card. Pretty simple, like just an extra card in hand, honestly. Like, it's nothing too amazing, but the 68 power is a little bit of a downer, but I think overall the card really isn't all that bad. Next is the new starter, which is Outstanding Mutant Promo Larva, and I love the design of this guy, like the shades and everything, just make it look so great. And so he's a Forerunner, and at the beginning of your right phase, you can kill almost one and slide him into the soul. If you do, draw a card and rest all your opponent's units. This isn't GB1, you can use this immediately. It's like, you're facing Overlord or Chaos, so you will use it immediately. And like, it's just so great. It's amazing how amazing it actually is. And so against everything else, obviously you can keep it around for a bit longer and just wait until the actual right timing to use him. But honestly, like, the fact that it's not GB1 makes it really good. And just a few more cards to go. The first one of which is, again, this is going to be Machining Tree Hopper. So he's machining, but he's basically generic. So GB1 act, return him to your deck and choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and that unit cannot stand during your opponent's next stand phase and shuffle your deck. That's just amazing. Like, it's a paradigm shift for basically just for Megacolony, you know, in their own way of paradigm shift, obviously, but it just makes it so great because this is free, it's on GB1, you can use it in anything, it has machining in its name, it does everything you need to do, so this crit is actually really insane. Next is Megacolony Battler G, so we're finally up to G this time, with G just about to end, and so his skill is an act, you slide him into the soul to countercharge 1. He's a stand, and you know, like, it doesn't have a machining in its name sadly, that would be quite nice, but you know, you can't expect too much from a battler. And the final card that we have for Megacolony and this set is the reprint of the Darkface crit. Obviously you're gonna have to reprint it if you've got, you know, if you're slapping Darkface onto Ghidorah, you're gonna have to do that. So very good reprint, just like every other one, and overall I think this rounds up the Megacolony part. Really solid support for the clan, honestly it's looking very good, and as we've seen in Japan it's topping quite a lot, and I think even in the English side it's already starting to do some things, so it's definitely quite good to see. Again, I apologize for how late this set breakdown is, but I hope you guys can still appreciate it. I'll do my best to get the Stargate one out on time, because that's the set that I'm really excited for, and I think you all know that. So that's going to be coming up quite soon, just a few more weeks to go, but I hope you guys enjoyed this for the time being and enjoyed the new set as well. So don't forget to smash that good old bell button. As I said in the beginning of the video, it does help to deliver notifications of when I do upload. But with that, that's going to be it for this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.